Well, I got a good one for you this time. It's one of those that just the way things worked out, you just kind of, one of those things you just know that God helped you get through that. Now, I was doing a lot of traveling, as you know, and I was singing in countries all over the world and yodeling. And for those of you who might be here for the first time, you'll notice they're on YouTube. There are several videos where I was at different shows yodeling, and so you'll kind of know what I was doing there. But I was doing that all over the world, and I was invited to go to Australia and to New Zealand. And this story that I'm telling you now, I think happened in New Zealand, because I get a little mixed up as to where it was at, but I'm pretty sure it was New Zealand. But on the way over, well, first of all, I was selling my CDs, not CDs, cassettes. We didn't have CDs yet. And cassettes were kind of new, as a matter of fact. And so I had several albums, and I had them on cassette. And I had them in big cardboard sealed in boxes, because I was going to be there for at least 6 weeks, I believe. And so I needed a lot of cassettes, because I was doing concerts everywhere, all across Australia and New Zealand. And so I knew I was going to need a lot of cassettes. So I took 3 big boxes, and I had them on. Now, I didn't know that New Zealand had a tax at 60%. So if I was selling my cassettes at $10 each, then New Zealand wanted 60% of that, which would be $6, and they would charge me at the entrance. As I came in with the product, they were going to charge me a tax of 60% on every cassette. Now, if I had hundreds of them, can you imagine the amount of money I would have had to pay them? Now, of course, when I started off, I didn't know this at all. So I was heading for trouble without knowing it. And also, I had a PA system that was in another kind of some big boxes. And that PA system, they would have charged me for bringing that across too. And for some reason or other, that socialism that they had going on over there really knew how to get your money. So we flew over to New Zealand, but on the way over there, on the airplane, they gave you a big white card that asked you a lot of questions. And they wanted to know if you'd been on a farm or wherever you had been, because they've got to be careful what you're bringing with you and all of that. One of the things that they had on the card was the question, do you have any wool, like lamb's wool? Well, I didn't. I filled out no, of course. But my wife filled out the card yes, because you see, my wife did a lot of knitting, and she would knit everywhere we went. She was always knitting. And my wife carried about that much, a handful of lamb's wool in her hand, in her purse. And once in a while, she would squeeze the lamb's wool to get the right kind of lanolin on her fingertips, which gave her the right friction she needed while she was knitting. So she answered, yes, we have lamb's wool on the card. Now, when we started to go through customs, and I began to hear what they were looking for, the different things that they were charging duty on, and they were going to charge me at least $6 a piece for my cassettes, and they were going to charge me 60% of what my PA system was worth. I wasn't going to be able to afford this. This was way beyond what I had expected. And I'd heard that before we got off the plane, I heard from people this is what they're going to do, and I thought, how am I going to get my cassettes across the border? How am I going to do that? And how am I going to get my PA system? So then I find out as we go to the first gate, then we're lined up and they're marching us off the plane, and I'm hearing that my wife has already given the card, and she's put on their lamb's wool. Well, I really got mad. I chewed her out. I was so angry at her because she just had a handful is all. And she told him we had lambswool. And so here we are at the gate, and they're about ready to look at all these huge boxes I've got. And they're about ready to look at the PA system that I've got. They're going to charge me for all of that. But they look at her card first and they said, aha, lambswool. And she said, yes. He said, you don't belong in this line. He said, you belong in that line, which was the agriculture line. So we take all, and they're on carts. These boxes are on carts. We push these carts across the airport over to the agriculture part. And on the way, I'm really, really angry. My wife has signed a card that says we've got lambswool. And now they're going to go through these boxes looking for lambswool. And I'm going to be charged for all of these. Oh, I was angry. So we get over there to the gate. I got no choice. We get over there to the gate and they look at the card. All right, they're looking at the boxes. They're looking at us. Okay, let's see the lambswool. My wife went, here. She held out this. They said, is that it? She said, yes. He said, go on your way. He passed us through with all these boxes of cassettes, and the PA system went right on through. We didn't get asked anything else. She had a handful, and I was mad at her. You know, I could see God laughing at me. Because, you know, everywhere we went, everything we did, I knew God was with me. I knew that God took care of us. We trusted Him to take care of us. We trusted Him by delighting in Him at all times, or I say at all times. I failed the Lord like everybody does. But we lived a life of trying to delight in the Lord, like it says in Psalms 37. And He seems to get you through so many things just so miraculously. And this was one of them where it would have cost me a fortune. Or I would have had to just leave the cassettes and let them have them, because I don't think I could have afforded to do it. And so here we were in New Zealand. And when I got across the border and our friends met us where we were gonna be staying, and they met us and they looked at these boxes and they said, what do you got? And I said, well, those are hundreds of cassettes and this is the PA system. And they said, well, how did you get in here with them? Well, I said, they didn't ask us about them. They just asked us about the lambswool. What lambswool? This right here. And so they had a good laugh, and so did I. But I want to tell you something. I was there for 6 weeks, and they sent me from one end of the country to the other and back again. And for about 6 weeks, I was singing every day, sometimes 2 to 3 times a day in 2 to 3 different places. It went to the top point where I wore out my throat. But they sure had me busy, and the cassettes all sold, and never had to pay the 60%. Now, I don't know whether that's crooked, but it seems to me like the Lord got me through this. I didn't have to lie to anybody. They just said, you know, on your way. And so we did. So that's one story that I love to tell. It's one of those stories that goes right along with my theme. Psalms 37 verse 4, delight yourself in the Lord, and He'll give you your heart's desires. He gets you through the problems. And I've said it in other episodes that I've shared here, that you don't have problems. Remember this. And I got to remember it over and over. I'm 86 years old. I'm still learning it over and over. We really don't have problems if you're a Christian, because your problems are really opportunities. God gives you the opportunity to practice Christianity. And that would be practice having a peaceful heart, having a joyful heart, and not sinning. And that's what happens when you serve God with all your heart and all your might and all your soul. So, Jim, I want you to tune into some more. I've got more coming. God bless you. Thank you.